our resource persons, the lead speaker, the guest speakers, distinguished participants, our citizens that are out there following us on live transmission, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press, I say a very good morning and welcome to this town hall meeting. The idea of a town hall meeting was created by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture in order to bridge the gap between the government and the citizens. So today we are gathered here in Kaduna to discuss one of the issues that has been bugging our minds all over in this country. And it is something that has to do with our survival and the national security. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, there is no need going into the details. You already know why we are here. We are here to look at issues, to discuss it, and try to prefer solutions so that we resolve whatever is bringing problems to us in our nation. So at this stage, may I seize this opportunity, with your permission, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to invite the chief hosts, His Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, to please come forward and give us the welcome address. Your Excellency, the Governor, Kaduna State, sir.
Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, my colleague, Dr. Hadiza Sabo Balarabe, Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, former governors, Your Royal Highnesses, senior military, police, and paramilitary officials here present, members of the National Assembly, all senior officials present, please permit me to observe all protocols. I would want to first welcome you all to Kaduna and Kaduna State University for this very important town hall meeting. And I want to thank my elder and my brother, Minister Lai Mohammed, for choosing to host this town hall meeting in Kaduna. We are grateful and we welcome you all, and we pray that as Allah has brought you here safely, He will take you home back to your destinations. So I again welcome all of you, including those that I missed in the protocol list, to Kaduna for this town hall meeting on national security. It is coming during a most challenging moment for our country. It is my hope that the discourse and discussions here today will be of a quality that will promote the engagements and consensus necessary for effective collective action to steer our country and its people. Amidst the sorrows and suffering insecurity has caused to many of our citizens, some of our compatriots will be tempted to dismiss gatherings like this as futile and impotent gestures. No one who is in a position of responsibility can deny the necessity for sustained action, for firm action that is in the form of proactive and sustained offensives against the criminals that menace us. Such security operations will not only cripple the outlaws, but will also reassure ordinary citizens, bolster the morale of the security agencies, and provide an alternative focus for the energies that are being dissipated on fractious and divisive endeavors. The situation in which the security agencies mostly react to cases of banditry and abduction is unacceptable. We are in a war with these terrorists who are challenging the sovereignty of the Nigerian state and its monopoly of the instruments of coercion across its territory. Our security forces must collaborate to take the war to the bandits and the terrorists, recover and restore the ungoverned forests these terrorists occupy, and enable our law-abiding citizens to engage in legitimate farming and livestock production without fear. These bandits have lost their right to life under our Constitution and must be wiped out in their entirety. There is no other way to approach the current insurgency situation today as far as governmental action is concerned. But action and discourse are not mutually exclusive. The theme of this town hall meeting speaks to that function of informed discourse as an enabler of more effective action. Setting benchmarks for enhanced security and national unity is an important imperative in ensuring that there is a common understanding of the two concepts and that across this country and its diversity there is a common register for talking about them and assessing them. Everyone that has been concerned about the danger that insecurity has posed to national cohesion will appreciate the importance of securing a collective understanding of the problems and the solutions. In my view, we require at the minimum some national consensus on the key issues that confront us, on the most efficient remedies for our weaknesses. At a public meeting in Lagos in February this year, I shared some lessons we have picked up from our efforts to manage our security situation in Kaduna State, and I think it bears repeating some of it here. Number one, the Nigerian state has not jealously and consistently protected its prerogatives and status as a leviathan, the ultimate guarantor of security, the protector of rights, and the promoter of the rule of law. That is why its power is being challenged everywhere across the country in a frighteningly sustained manner by a phalanx of armed non-state actors. Number two, our national level security response to these challenges has been uncoordinated and ineffective in wiping out the threats. None of the military services nor other security agencies have been suitably expanded in numbers and equipment for over a decade since the insurgency in the Northeast pushed things to a new law. This country does not have enough soldiers or uniformed policemen and women or numbers of secret police to project state power adequately across its vast swaths, particularly the forests. The limited number of boots on the ground are not well equipped and are significantly lacking in the technology that can make their limited numbers matter a lot less. Number three, our justice system operates with ethos and at a pace that do not reflect the fragility of the situation and the urgency to demonstrate that the rule of law is meaningful. Prosecutions take too long, that many citizens assume that the criminals have long been released, encouraging criminal conduct and raising the dangerous appeal to self-help. In fact, in this country, criminals like the courts because they know that they take their time before convicting them. The courts are on the side of the criminals rather than being on the side of law enforcement to a large extent. And this is totally unacceptable. Number four, The subnational level, that is the states and local governments combined, along with our traditional institutions, have limited hard power, but considerable options and scope for the exercise of soft power using our traditional rulers, community, and political leaders at the grassroots. But exercise of this soft power requires for its effectiveness the looming shadow of credible coercive power. Number 5, the notions of a common humanity, not to talk of a common citizenship, are not as widely or deeply shared as it would appear. Identity politics hold sway. This reflects the absence of an elite consensus about who we are and how we should live together. To attain this consensus, we must, as leaders and citizens, approach organizing and governing our country as a deliberate task, beginning with a collective decision regarding what sort of society we intend to be and the means of attaining it. Other countries have done it. I don't think it's impossible for us to do so. So I would like to conclude my welcome remarks by suggesting that this country requires urgent actions in the following areas. Number 1, to identify, focus, and deal decisively with all state and non-state actors engaged in conduct that amounts to challenging the supremacy of the Nigerian state and our constitution without ethnic profiling or discriminatory treatment. Secondly, we must provide immediate and enhanced funding to acquire advanced equipment, armament, and ordnance for the armed forces, police, security, and paramilitary agencies. Number 3, we must have decentralized policing. We don't have enough police. The bulk of the cost of running the police is borne by the states, and we don't know why we cannot have state police. I will repeat my call that we should have state police now. We should also try to amend the constitution to vest all minerals in the states now, and we must decentralize our judiciary now. It is unitary, it's ineffective, and it is not working. It is working more for the criminals than for innocent people. Number 4, we must be emphatic about the right of every citizen to security, freedom of movement, and rights of residence, and that the choice of livelihoods must conform to the laws of the land. And finally, to address the banditry problem, particularly in the Northwest and North Central, we must implement the National Livestock Transformation Plan already produced 4 years ago to enable accelerated investment in modern animal husbandry, incorporating the rapid sedentarization of herders in non-locations. I thank you for listening to my thoughts. I welcome you to Kaduna, and I wish you safe journeys back to your destinations. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. That was Malam Nasser Ahmed El Rufai, a man who many know is not afraid to take the kind of decisions needed for nation building. I dare say the only governor who has, if not all, well, almost all the parts of Nigeria working in his administration. And I think this is also very necessary for nation building. At this point, I would like to also welcome the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture in the person of Alhaji Lai Mohammed. You're welcome, sir.
Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State and our host, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, the representative of the Governor of Ekiti State, who also doubles as the Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Mr. Makinde Areoye, the representative of the Senate President, the Senate Leader, Senator Yahya Abubakar Abdullahi, representative of Governor of Zamfara State here, the Honorable Commissioner of Information, Ibrahim Dosara, Honorable Ministers here present, in particular, the Minister of Defense, Major General Bashir Salih Magashi, retired, the Minister of Agriculture, Alhaji Sabo Nanunu, the Minister of Environment, Dr. Mohammed, the Minister of Police Affairs, Excellency Megari Dingi Dagdi, the Minister of Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, the Minister of State Foreign Affairs, Malam Zubairu Dada, the Minister of Science, State and Technology, Minister of State, Science and Technology, Mr. Mohammed Abdullahi, Service Chiefs, representative of Service Chiefs and Inspector General of Police, the former Chief of Army Staff here present, General Iyejibika, the DG of parastatals under the Ministry of Information and Culture, especially the DG of the NTA and the DG of National Orientation Agency, our fathers and religious leaders here present, in particular the Emirs of Zaza, the Emir of Fika, and the Emir of Biri Egwari, and the Chief of Kataf, the Chairman of FRC, of FRSC here, representative of PANDEF, the Chairman and Secretary of Mieti Allah, leaders, lead presenters and discussants, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please forgive me if I have inadvertently missed out anybody. You are all very important, and without you, there wouldn't have been this town hall meeting here today. I welcome you all to this town hall meeting on national security. I want to most warmly welcome my colleagues, honorable ministers who in particular have taken time off their very busy schedule to be here. I also want to once again recognize the members of the National Assembly, especially the Senate leader, who have also considered this event as important enough to reschedule their other national assignments. I also welcome our panelists, and indeed all those who have taken the pains to be here today. I thank you all. Please permit me to extend our sincere gratitude to our host, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, for once again agreeing to host our town hall meeting. This is the second time we'll be holding a town hall meeting here in Kaduna. Each time we came calling, His Excellency has always welcomed us with open arms and shown us great hospitality. Your Excellency, we thank you and we shall come again. For the record, the Ministry of Information and Culture launched the Town Hall Meeting series in Lagos on April 25th, 2016, to provide a platform for the federal government to regularly give account of its stewardship to the people, get a feedback and input from them, and overall to enhance citizens' participation in governance. This town hall meeting today is the 18th edition. Distinguished ladies, gentlemen, this town hall meeting with theme setting benchmarks for enhanced security and national unity in Nigeria is yet another in a series of efforts of government in its expansive consultation with stakeholders to address the twin issues of insecurity and its concomitant effect on our national unity and cohesion. Ominously, the general state of insecurity as reflected in incidences of farmers-herders clashes, the Boko Haram insurgency, banditry, ethno-religious clashes and intolerance, cultism, drug addiction, and kidnapping for ransom are now triggering rising call for secession as well as politicization of ethnic and religious differences. Bluntly put, the insecurity and its manifestations pose a dangerous threat to the unity of the country and its continued existence as one indivisible nation. How do we get here, and what can we do to change the narrative? We believe that finding a way out of the situation in which we have found ourselves requires teamwork, reflecting all diversities and leveraging on all our collective creativity to pursue with diligence the project of Rescue Nigeria. Perhaps the correct starting point towards addressing this myriad of problems is the building of an elite consensus on the security, unity, indissolubility, and peaceful existence of Nigeria. Such elite consensus had worked in the past. Can we make it work now and provide solutions in order to stave off the threat to our unity as a nation? This is why we have decided to bring all critical stakeholders together under a town hall meeting setting to deliberate on the issues and possibly reach a consensus on the way forward. We expect this town hall meeting to develop concrete, implementable resolutions because a lot of talks and postulations are taking place with little or no requisite outcome. We have no doubt that with the seriousness of the issues involved, the expected contributions of a wide range of stakeholders, and the quality of our panelists, presenter, Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, and our discussants, Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, Professor Chudi Uwazurike, both of whom will join us virtually, Professor Sakanuru and Professor Mrs. Kokure Egafuna. This town hall meeting will go a long way in providing solutions to what has now become an existential crisis. On that note, I want to once again welcome you all to this town hall meeting on national security, and also to thank you for your kind attention. As we're having problems linking Mr. President virtually, I will now just move on to please call on the lead discussant, Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, to please give his address while we're working to get Mr. President to join us in this deliberation. I thank you very much.
We thank the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture for the opening remarks. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture has already invited the lead presenter. But who is this lead presenter? He is no other person than Jibrin Ibrahim. Jibrin Ibrahim was born in Kano. He schooled in Kano, proceeded to Ahmadu Bello University, where he bagged some of his degrees and taught in that school. You will recall At a number of forums where I speak, I have always said there are only two universities in Nigeria, ABU and the others. He is from ABU, and I'm proud to say that I was a student, and I believe the governor of Kaduna State was one of our contemporaries during his days in Ahmadu Bello University. Those were days that professors, teachers were teachers. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, he has a very long CV. And if I'm going to read it out, we may not leave this hall. So permit me at this stage to invite him formally to please go ahead and do his presentation. Dr. Jibrin Ibrahim, you're welcome. You can sit there, but if you want to.
Your Excellency, the Governor and Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, you are causing confusion, Mr. Man.
A very short time.
Okay. I've been ordered to remove my face mask. I will report you people to the Minister of Health, who said we should always put it on. Your Excellencies, the Governor and Deputy Governor, Honorable Ministers, your Royal Fathers, officers of Nigeria's security agencies, and citizens. 3 weeks ago, I was invited as lead speaker at the Barewa College Old Boys Association meeting. And I asked the Minister of Defense to defend me because I was going to say some hard truths. He didn't. And I was really told off. And because I was told of them, I will again say hard truths, and please feel free to tell me off. Governor El-Rufai, you should have been there, you would have protected me more. I think it's really important to appreciate the work of the Ministry of Information in organizing these town halls to get people outside government to engage on issues of vital national importance. And I do think this topic of national security and national unity are extremely important. I start my paper, and I do have a written paper, which for the sake of time I can't go through, with a quotation from the late Professor Ade Ajayi. And he makes 3 points. Some people think it's easy to pull Nigeria apart. It is not easy, it is almost impossible, because you don't know how to carve it out. The second point he makes is that if we really think carefully, the easier task is to build a stronger nation. That it is easier to build Nigeria into a strong nation than to tear it apart. His third point is that from the very beginning, Nigeria has been known for its huge potentials. It has the size, it has the market, it has the diversity for greatness. And that as Nigerians, we should always have our vision targeted at these great potentials and do all in our power to make sure we move in that direction. I feel that's the summary of what has always been my position. And as a lot of you who read my Friday columns know, I'm never shy of saying what I think. Whosoever ox is God. We live today in very difficult times with a lot of challenges. We have the security challenge, which is in a sense determining all discourses about hope in the future today. We have the challenge of sectarianism, which has developed to a very high level. Thirdly, we have the challenge of a disappearing elite consensus. My position has always been, Nigeria has always had an elite consensus on one issue, and that elite consensus was forged in 1951, on the basis of which the Macpherson's Constitution was built. That Nigeria shall be a true federation, or it will fall apart. At this point, many Nigerians are asking themselves whether there's a complete breakdown of that elite consensus. And if that is the case, let's go our various ways. And it's in that context that the issues of rising disunity have emerged over the past few years. I think it's clear to all of us that we do have a serious state crisis. And that state crisis has three elements to it. The first element is that of public corruption. Independence was obtained on the basis of a promise. Improved security, improved welfare for Nigerians. The story of Nigeria, and I argue in this paper, that we have to stop focusing on just the government in place today. Our our problems go way back. The feeling of Nigerians since independence is that independence has been an opportunity for the elite in power, and we've had so many of them over the generations, to pocket the fruits of independence. We've also seen many governments come into power on the basis and promise of settling the question of public corruption, and they have failed serially. This problem of public corruption generates the second problem with the Nigerian state, that of citizenship. Nigerians feel they are not genuine citizens of their country because the elite take over all the resources for themselves. These people in the front row. I'm not referring to you here. The third crisis, which flows from the crisis of citizenship, is a crisis of democracy. The crisis of democracy poses itself dramatically only in the Fourth Republic. Those of us who spent a few years following Nigerian politics know what's in the literature. The literature says the First Republic was truncated after 6 years. If it hadn't been, we would have resolved the problem of democracy. The Second Republic lasted just 4 years, and therefore we didn't get the opportunity to resolve the problem of democracy. The Third Republic, thanks to the military, never even took off. The Fourth Republic has been here for 21 years. In that 21 years, democracy has not deepened significantly. And Nigerians have not seen the dividends of democracy. And I think it is in that context that Nigerians pose the question, what does democracy mean for me as an ordinary citizen? Nigeria is today undergoing its third major crisis of national cohesion. The first crisis was from the 1962 census through the 64 elections, the coup, and culminated with the Civil War. The second crisis was in the early 1990s and the collapse of the promise of the Third Republic. The third crisis we're going through is the one we're in today. When I was coming in here, I saw some of the security officials have boldly written on their back, "Commando." Nigerians are telling you, you are not the only commando in this country. On Monday, non-state actors carried out a commando attack in Imo State. They ransacked the prison. No, it's not called prison anymore. Exactly. The police headquarters, they released prisoners. They burnt public edifices. So we do have commandos out there. Yesterday, Nigeria convened a meeting, the National Peace Committee. The chairman, General Abdulsalam Abubakar, said we have 6 million private citizens with small arms in this country. Think about it. 6 million. The Zamfara state governor said in those forests that bestrode the 4 lovely states, Zamfara, Katsina, Kaduna, and Niger, we have 30,000 armed combatants engaged in terrorism and banditry. We have 3 million IDPs, people who have been chased out of their communities and out of their homes. And clearly, there's a basic issue about the Leviathan. Governor El-Rufai spoke about the Leviathan asserting itself. It should, but can it? With 6 million civilians with arms, what's the total population of all the security agencies in this country? The Leviathan, as the famous book said, has been crippled. And the task before us is to work out a new pact so that you can build a new Leviathan, this time anchored on the people. I propose in my paper 10 benchmarks on how to move forward. And given the time constraints and the number of panelists, I'll go through them extremely quickly. The first point is the nature of our security agencies. The fact that they never went through decolonization. Nigeria's security agencies were established as a bulwark for colonial rule and exploitation of the people. They therefore were thought not to have respect for the people, to treat them with disdain, to oppress them, to deal with them. And I know what I'm talking about. I was a member of the presidential panel that investigated human rights violations by the armed forces. And we went around Nigeria and heard what people were saying. And what people said is summarized in the hope and the fear of the Nigerian state. Everywhere we went, the people have tons of complaints about violation of their rights by security agencies. And they said, let them stop it. We always ask one question: should the military be withdrawn from your community? Every single place we went to, they said, no, we need the military. This message has to be learned. Security agencies exist to provide for our collective security. But in so doing, they must always ensure they respect our rights. And if they do, we become happy with our state. If they don't, we become unhappy with our state. In political science, we don't really have laws. But if there were, the one law will be, in the history of humanity, no state, no political community can be sustained by force. To sustain a political community, you must transform force into law, and you must transform obedience of the masses into a conception of the duty of the masses to their political community. And I think this approach of respect for the rule of law, of the observance of human rights, is what enables the Leviathan to do the job of keeping the community together. My second point, therefore, is the crucial observance of the edification of the rule of law. We have to check excesses. The problem in this country, everything that happens is known by Nigerians. Just a few days ago, a judge is filmed in Banex Plaza beating up citizens. What happens after that? The judge wasn't taken to jail. The citizen is now in jail. And listen to Nigerians. They are saying this is crazy. We all saw the video. Videos can be, we know, manipulated. Lai Mohammed has spoken a lot about that on various occasions. But there were tons of witnesses to what happened. And the person that is now in jail is not the perpetrator. It's the only story I'll give on the rule of law, because it happens every day in every state. So this question of Nigeria's ruling class interrogating themselves daily, that let's ensure we are not above the law and there is the same law for everybody. Mr. Arabic Sola, I hope you are listening to me. It's the same law for everybody. Tell them every day, morning, afternoon, and night. My third point, benchmark, has to do with an increased effort to engage with the marginalization thesis in this country. Every media organ, every message in the social media is about how we are marginalized, how our people have been marginalized in this country. That narrative of marginalization has always existed in this country. When you look at the debates between Nigeria's leaders, between the Richards Constitution in 1946 and the McPherson's in 1951, it was all about marginalization. That one region will get power and marginalize the others. And that's why they said, let's agree, elite consensus, federalism. In 2012, I ran 7 columns on marginalization. And I went through the 6 geopolitical zones, and I show for each of them that there is a widespread narrative within that zone that they are the most marginalized zone in Nigeria. And they all have their reasons for saying that. Now, what that tells us, so all zones in Nigeria are marginalized. But that's not the problem. The problem is what happens when a zone allegedly gets power. Nigerians feel, the attitude of that particular elite group, is that it says it's now our turn to take ourselves out of marginalization. And in so doing, it forgets the narrative that all the others are also complaining of marginalization. My point here is there is a discourse on governance that has been unable to intellectualize and contextualize narratives about marginalization. Why am I being given different times? This one is the final one, right? Okay. Now, this notion that it's in our turn does something terrible to the elite consensus. The definition of elite consensus in 1951 is power sharing. It is not, it's my turn. Once you say it's our turn, then you are not resolving the problem, you are deepening it. And one of the tragedies of Nigeria's governance is that each government that comes in gets surrounded. We have this famous word we call cabal. And it's that cabal that pushes this idea that it's our turn. If governance and governments are schooled into this belief that, if we do genuine power sharing, and there's a reason why Nigerians love this word genuine, then we carry everybody along. And we get out of this politics of numbers. How many political appointments are from this zone? What is the power and strength of the ministry or parastatal that group gets associated? Do they get the powerful security agencies like the army, or do they get, well, I shouldn't mention names. So we spend all our life as a nation debating that arithmetic. How many from here, and what positions do they occupy, and how does that prove the marginalization thesis? My fourth point, and I've reached a point where I will move faster, is that at this point, state crisis in Nigeria is serious. And to address it, there's no other way than to go back to what we call restructuring. That people have a profound objection to the loss of our federalism and want that federalism back. And there's no complicated magic about federalism. Is that federalism is about sharing power between the federal government and the federating units. And each of these levels should have substantive powers. Currently, when you look at the second schedule of the Constitution, 68 powers are reserved for the federal government, 30 for the concurrent lists, and Nigeria does not have the third list that federal states have, which is the residual list for the federating units. You can't continue with it. You can't continue. You have to distribute those powers, and this might be the last opportunity to do that. The ruling party in this country asked one Nasir El-Rufai to propose a roadmap for restructuring. He's a diligent human being. He did his work with his members of his committee, and that was the end of the story. Nasir may know something we don't know, so maybe that's not the end of the story. But if I have one message today, it is to give Nigerians confidence of a future. We have to look at the constitutional distribution of powers. We have to rejig our constitution seriously. And every single government in the Fourth Republic has promised that and has not delivered. It's simply not good enough. If we don't do it now, we may not have the opportunity to do it again. My sixth benchmark is that of our ungoverned spaces. The spaces that are governed by bandits and terrorists in this country are expanding daily. The forests have long been taken over, and we haven't thought through policy measures on how to recover the territory we have lost to bandits. We need to develop a national consensus on that. My seventh benchmark is to start telling our young ones that we worship the same God. This is a theme I've been on for some time, and it's based on my secondary school experience. My witness is the Minister of Defense and the Governor of Kaduna State, who are in the only secondary school that matters in the history of Nigeria. And for the years we were in school, we had a great book of readings for assembly every morning, which is on the theme that we worship the same God. This is a book of readings published in 1958 in preparation for independence by the government of northern Nigeria. And it makes the simple point that the main religions, Islam and Christianity, are Abrahamic religions. They share the same prophets. They share a lot of their theology in common. And what they did was to get religious experts to go through the key books of both religions and deliberately choose phrases that are almost identical. And by the time you go through secondary school, you respect the other religion because you realize it's so similar to your own. The assignment I give to Governor El-Rufai is to reprint that book, circulate it among governors, constitute a new panel to look at the content, because there is a new element that did not exist when that book came out in 1958, and that's this whole idea of fundamentalism, this idea of groups saying, not just the other religion, but even within your own religion, anybody not in your own group is a non-believer going to hell. 2 weeks ago, I tweeted this phrase out, that we have the same God. I think I've not had Twitter insults for a long time as I did over that tweet. And Nigerians were telling me categorically, there's no way you can say Christians and Muslims have the same God. Are you crazy? There was no insult I wasn't subjected to. Think about it. Same prophets, same origin, similar theologies. Of course, there are differences. But how do you respect the other if you don't even believe that you worship the same God? The young generation of today has come up in a context of hate speech, how the problem is the other. They must be taught that the problem is not the other, and that we have a common God, and what God expects of human beings is that we all worship him. And it's not our business killing those who do not believe in the same God you think you have. We must stop that, and it takes deliberate policy measures to put that out in our educational system. My next point is education for all. And it's about why and how this country forgot the National Pledge of 1973. General Gawan convened a meeting of his cabinet in 1973, locked them in a room, and said, let them come out with one idea that will ensure we never have a civil war again. They came up with 3 ideas. Every child born from 1970 must have 3 things: compulsory primary education, free primary education, qualitative primary education. That's the national, the National Pledge of 1973. And it was to start implementation from those born in 1970, and that's why UPE started in 76, to capture that. And every government from that time on was to ensure. The last school census I've seen, credible school census, was that of 2010. What does it tell us? Borno State had 23% of children of primary school age going to school. Lagos, 95%. There's something wrong with those numbers. how do you expect peace? The other number that I should talk about, because it's controversial and nobody ever wants to talk about it, is that of family planning. What are the numbers? The fertility rate for Lagos is 3. That is, the average woman in her lifetime gives birth to 3 children. The fertility rate for Borno is 7.3. And the numbers from the Nigerian Sahel, that's the upper part of northern Nigeria, plus Niger, 7.3 is the highest fertility rate in the world. There's no other community in Africa, Asia, anywhere that has that sort of fertility. We have to think about that. It's the places with the highest fertility that have the least commitment to educating the children, and we send them out to beg, and we are surprised. We have 30,000 armed bandits in Sokoto State. And in the Barewa lecture, I spoke about the irresponsible political behavior of the Nigerian elite. Because this problem was addressed in 1973. Today, we are still not there. And I repeat, it's unacceptable. My benchmark number 9, so there's only one more after this, and the last one is the shortest. Is how do you build a state? People think understanding the state is a difficult thing. No, it's very simple. The state does 3 things, and just get it to do those things, and then you are fine. The first thing the state does is that it taxes the population. It takes their money. And when you look at the history of states, there is a very close correspondence between capacity to tax people and competent governance. When you take money from every adult, accountability is on the table. We must go back to taxing Nigerians and getting them to be partners in state building. And when you do that, they will pursue you to use their money well. We have to do that. The real benefit of taxing people is that you get to know them. Who are your people and where are they? When you look at our emirs from 1903 till we abandoned local government, every traditional ruler had the primary responsibility of knowing the total households in their domain, from Mengwa, Dakachi, right up to the top. And their day job is knowing everybody in the community. Nobody knows who is in the community today. Nobody has responsibility. Local government doesn't exist. So the Nigerian state actually doesn't know Nigerians. And the fastest way to know Nigerians is tax them. They will scream, they will shout, but you get to know each other. The second work of the state, and is a direct flow from the first is that the state produces public goods. And if your public good derives from your taxes, there is accountability and you always get asked questions. The third role of the state is justice for all on the basis of the law. My 10th benchmark is about marriage. Marriage is very important. When you read Article 15(3)(c) in our Constitution, and the Nigerian Constitution is one of the few constitutions to go into marriage, the Constitution says, go forth and marry between cultures, between religions, between places of origin, between ethnic groups and linguistic groups. It's in our Constitution. You know the funny thing? Very few Nigerians, maybe a few hundred, knows it's in the Constitution, but Nigerians have been obeying the Constitution. They've been marrying across cultures in a very profound way. Of course, it's not because they read the Constitution. It's because Nigeria has urbanized massively. And the second reason is that a lot of marriage where people meet to marry is through religious organizations. And both of them put people who are not from the same origin together. That's urban life and religious organizations. So Nigerians meet themselves. They are not from the same culture. They love each other. They marry. So we can't break up this country. We have to make marriages happy. Thank you.
We thank the lead presenter, Jibril Ibrahim, for those thought-provoking points he has raised. Can we once again put our hands together for Jibril for the very good work he has done? So, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind us that this town hall meeting is being covered live by NTA, FRCN, News Agency of Nigeria, and FRCN, and other media channels, including live streaming on the social media, courtesy of the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. So we are being watched all over the world. For now, we will be going to the discussants. And we have amongst us this afternoon to discuss this paper that has been presented, Professor Saka Nuru. And once again, who is Professor Saka Nuru? Professor Saka Nuru is a veterinary surgeon. And you want to begin to ask questions. Why would a surgeon be here with us? You know, one of the issues we have is the farmers and herders clashes. He has been a veterinary surgeon for many, many years. He is a member of various veterinary associations, both locally and internationally. He is from Ilorin and has schooled all over the world. And in his CV, I also saw he is an alumni of Bariwa College, Zaria. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this scholar, Professor Saka Nuru, has well over 100 scientific publications in his credit. Can we put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for the professor? And I now have the singular honor and privilege of inviting Professor.
The chief host and the executive governor of Kaduna State, Malam El-Rufai, the deputy governor, the deputy governor of Kaduna State, the honorable minister of information and culture, all other ministers here present, all governors here present, members of the National House of Assembly and the State House of Assembly, our royal fathers, all other protocols as it was before. Sir, it was only about the time that the keynote speaker said that he was invited to give a paper, and I was also informed to be a discussant. When the minister asked me to be a discussant, I said, discuss on what? So I told him, I said, look, you have been holding all your town hall meetings in at the state level. When it comes to Kuala, you call me and I'll come. He said, no, this is different. We are all coming from all over Nigeria to come and hold this one here. I said, so you are supposed to come. I did not receive the keynote address paper until yesterday when I read it, but I knew that since the minister asked me to come, it must be on national issues, and one of the problems in this country today is about the conflict between the farmer and the herdsman. So that's why I personally asked him to come and talk about it. The first speaker said he was very proud when he was introduced, he was proud of him being from ABU. I stand here before you that I have spent 55 years of my life in Kaduna State. I'm more Kaduna man than I am of Kwara State. I started from 1951, I was in Bariwa College. I'm Bariwa 918. All my working life, 90% of my working life as senior official is all in Kaduna State. So when I go home, they said, Baba Zaria, because all the children born, they don't know me. Baba Zaria, I said, So in 1920 something, I said, look, it is high time to go home. But nevertheless, Zaria and Kaduna State is home. It's one leg there, one leg here. My family right now are in Zaria. So I moved Kaduna, and of ABU, I was teaching there and also running administration for 23 years. There was no area, there was no chairmanship I did not have in ABU. I was provost for agriculture and veterinary medicine. I was director of the National Research Institute for 15 years. That's why I possibly qualified to be able to speak on this issue today, because it was during those years of my ABU as director, as provost, that more and more we were more involved in policy making as well as execution of some of the government policies. When the guest speaker was talking, major part of what he said is all political science or law or something. He did not mention anything about this higher crop farmer conflict. That is on page 13 to 14 of his paper. I thought he would have mentioned it because it's one of the key things that's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Any day you open any newspaper or listen to any electronic media, you hear so many stories: kidnapping, rustling, cattle rustling, almost every day, and you are even afraid of even leaving your room. This has got to the extent that farmers cannot even go to the farm. Some of them, they said they bribed the kidnappers to be able to go and harvest. Now that situation is getting bad. I will speak through my slide, if it is possible. Now, over please. Next. National security.
Can I have my hand mic? Because you'll be facing.
This one, okay. Now, national security is of paramount importance to any government. Put it out. It's of very, very great importance to any government in the country. Security threats on the increase, not only because of farmer-herd conflict in cattle rustling, kidnapping, and what you want, all over the country. It is a concern. As I said, even farmers are free to go to their farm. If they don't go to the farm, we are asking for hunger to come. Where is our national food security coming from if they don't go to the farm? If they are wrestling cattle, where are we going to be tomorrow? So this is of great importance. So I want to thank the organizers very much for asking me to come and participate in this very, very important national meeting. Next one. Next. Mine is a brief to address the audience, to remind some of you and to educate some of you on what is it all about cattle and crop farmers. The problem of farmer conflicts is not new in Nigeria. Since 1950s and 60s, especially more so in northern Nigeria, it is not new at all. Many experts have different reasons why the conflicts arose. Some of them has been mentioned in his paper. The change with the local changes, the new dimension of what is happening in the world, acquisition of ammunition, and co-origin ways. The farmer will invite the Fulani to come to his farm for a week or two to put fertilizer on the farm so that he can get a better yield. They are very good friends. At the harvest time, the Fulani will harvest all the leftovers on the farm. He will eat for the animals before he starts migrating, if ever he's going to migrate. So they were really in good company. Also in the 60s, the Fulani only carry one stick and also a cutlass. The stick is to control wild animals and to protect himself in the bush. The cutlass is in the heart of the dry season to lop down trees so that animals can get additional amount of food other than the grass, which is already dried and very scanty. So this is it. Today, we have resolved that a Fulani is now carrying AK-47. Where are we? The change is drastic, and we don't like it at all. The Nigerian land, God has given us a lot of resources. We should be more than grateful to God, because there are not very many countries in the world that has got the sun for 12 hours a day, or the resources that God has given us in human resources as well as livestock resources. That figure there of 930,000 square kilometers of land in Nigeria. 35% of it is used for cropping in the 60s to 80s, and 395 is used for 281 is used for arable farming. The rest, I can show you more figures later on. But the point is this: we have suitable large area of land that both practitioners, using this only factor of production, that is land and its resources, they have got ample room to be able to develop. So why are we killing each other? I don't know. Next one. There are reasons. Ecologists, meteorological, I've told you, weather changes, you migrate, rainy season here, wet season there, you migrate and follow. As far as they are concerned, they want food for animals. That's the priority. Next one. In the past, grazing zone was very extensive, covering large areas of land in the country. But with our modern development, since the 1980s and co, you remember the land clearing that the government is clearing almost all lands for expanded agriculture. Railways, aircraft, airplane fields, almost everything is all under the bulldozer. Net result is that the grazing reserve or the grazing orbit of the Fulani was more reduced. So they graze anywhere they can find grass for the animals. This is one thing. The changes in weather also force them to go from one place to the other. But we also know that in the 1960s, there was a lot of problem of what we call rinderpest disease, which eliminated nearly 90% of the houses in this country. The net result is that the traditional farmers that we knew, they were no longer there. Some of them even went crazy because they lost all their belongings. From that time onwards, it is you and me, the elite group, that give them 2, 3, 4 animals to be able to hunt for them. And up to today, there are many places in the Western region that the herd that you see with your Fulani is not really its own. It may belong to 2 or 3 people. So the problem we are having is really not so much of our traditional Fulani owners. It is those who are migrating from other places coming to us. Our own also migrate. And I will tell you what, next slide. Next slide. The resource base is here. He quoted 90 million. I'm quoting authoritatively that the cattle population is about 14 million, sheep is 22 million, and goats is 34 million. Camel, 88,000 only. That's the resource that we have got in livestock in this country so far. But the point is this. Is it the number that we care? No. At this modern age in 20th century, it is not the number that counts. It is the productivity per unit area, per acre of land or per animal. So instead of all this number, we don't need them. With modern husbandry, things can change. This has been our problem over the last 3 decades. We'll come to it later on. Next one. Next one. So these animals are distributed all over the place. What I want to significance of livestock industry, in Nigeria, we all know the significance. In livestock industry, you not only have the producers, the Fulanis, who are also numbering about 8 million or so among us. Not only those, there are the people transporting animals from north to south. There are those who are butchering. There are those who are catering for industry of raw material, milk for dairy, and meat for processing to meat condiments and co. So many millions of Nigerians are really employed in this industry. It is not an easy one. You go to any village market, especially one in Alkaleri. If you go to Alkaleri on Sunday market, the amount of money changing heads is in the millions. I personally went there for one day while I was in Bauchi, and I bought animals for 1.5 million on one day. So the people don't think that there is money in livestock, and we attribute it to Fulani. Why should it be Fulani? Anybody can practice livestock industry. There is a lot of money inside it. The Fulani take it as a way of life. No, that's not. It should not be so. And that's why we are still marking time in the same place. If they take it as a commercial enterprise, I can assure you that there is enough money in life that you will receive possibly better than petroleum. And I've got practical proof to show that. Anyhow, systems of production differs. We have to understand this before we go far. One, there is the traditional transportation of animals from A to B. Now that is open grazing and going from A to B, from end of the year here to the beginning of the year there and co. That is one system of production. That is transhuman. Now, that is practiced before by our people, but with since I've told you before, that has been reduced greatly. The only problem we've got now is people coming with your ECOWAS and full movement. Anybody can come into your country. And this is a headache to us so far. So the problems we're having is these other transitory people who go through our border to come and do their grazing and move back again. They have the largest number of animals. Our traditional people, they don't have more than 40, 50. Unless you go to Mambila Plateau, where a Fulani may have anything up to 900 to 1,000 animals. In fact, it is a problem for them. They are milking the animals and throwing the milk away. That's why in the 1960s, we proposed here in Kaduna that there should be a milking plant on the Mambila Plateau. Up to today, it is only on the written letter. Nothing has been done. This is the problem. So the second type of farming is the semi-nomadic. The semi-nomadic, they have got a base, possibly in Kaduna or in Sokoto or somewhere, and they have a base where they keep their parents. The old parents stay at home, and they leave them with about 4 or 5 animals to give them milk to survive. When the majority of the other animals, they are taken away by their children. They come back, as soon as the rainy season comes here, they come back. That is semi-transition sector. The third one, which is the most important one which we want, is the agro-pastoralists. Those are the ones who settle in one place. They develop crop for their need and even for the market, and they also participate in livestock industry. Those are the ones that we really want to encourage. Now, so far, that is, next one. These are the systems, the 3 I will describe to you now. Okay, go on. Next one. Nomadic, extensive grazing, semi-nomadic, and agro-pastoral. Those are the 3 stages that you do. So when you're addressing problem, it is more on the nomadic one rather than, and sometimes to the semi-nomadic one, but agro-pastoralists, they don't have any problem whatsoever so far. Next one. Now, the thing is, as I said before, the problem has been there for a long time. What the various governments did to be able to alleviate conflict. This country, we have seminars and conferences and co at a research level institution, at a regional level, at a national level. One of the last one we had was our present head of state, who was the chairman of PTF. We had the War College arranging for peace and peaceful coexistence in Nigeria. It's all centered on this. Our present head of state was the chairman. We were there to cover him at that time. So there are, from that time, here in Kaduna, about 2 years ago, there was another conference like this one. The point is, we talk. As Minister of Information said, we talk. It is time for us to act. Because we have got a lot of things, many things have been discussed. This is the problem with Nigeria. We know our problem, and we know how to solve it, but we never solve it. So it is building on and building on. This is the problem with us. So I hope that this conference will be a do and not just talk affair. So that's why the suggestions we are going to bring about will come this way. Now, previous government policies to avert the conflict. One is the establishment of Fulani amenities. Those are in the 1960s when some of us graduated. What it means is that the government of northern Nigeria, they allocate a block of money to supply food, groundnut cake, cottonseed cake, molasses, salt lake, to provide for the farmers so that they are steady in one place instead of migrating from A to B. This worked very well, but financially, it's a lot. People, they learned that it is of great benefit to the animals. So that scheme could not go on anymore. The next one is establishment of grazing reserves by law. The law was established in 1965, and it provides for each government, each province to allocate area specific for livestock development. So the question of grabbing somebody's an arable farmer's land does not arise. All governments in the federation, even those who don't deserve it, in the southern part, you will see some of them here now, including Enugu, Oyo, everyone wanted it to copy the north, and they all established grazing reserves. So this is it. The government started it here, and it went. I will tell you the reason why it fails. Establishment of tapis and co for the watering of animals is costly and abandoned. Next one. Okay, when the grazing reserve is used in the wet season, it minimizes conflict because instead of them going to damage growing crops, they stay in the reserve. And since they stay in the reserve, there's no conflict as such. When it is in the dry season, they only go to eat the aftermath of the crops, and that is okay as far as farmer is concerned. When used in the wet season, it is good, it serves its purpose. On that scheme, we had a lot of money from outside The World Bank in particular gave us millions of dollars. But what is happening? Everything went well. The grazing reserves were created. I'll show you some of them there. Grazing reserves were created and maintained to a certain, not very much maintained. The Fulanis will graze around the grazing reserve, especially around the water holes, which we provided, until they cause erosion and impaction of the soil. Now, what doesn't belong to you, it belongs to everybody, nobody cares. So they move away. Immediately there is erosion, no more food, they move away to somewhere else. So the problem of the grazing reserve was that otherwise, school was provided, market was provided, all the mini Runga Game Reserve in grazing reserve in Katsina, we take all the milk from there to Katsina to be processed and sold. So there's no problem about that. The schools are built for the children. The wives are gainfully employed. Everything was working. Water is provided and everything. So why? But because of this thing that it doesn't belong to you to really do something with it, this caused the collapse of the grazing reserve. And the second thing is that in Nigeria, as long as the external aid is finished, no more dollars coming in, there's no plan for future to continuity of this program. And that led to complete eradication of the failure of that particular scheme. So there are many famous ones, which many of you have heard about. There is Ronka in Katsina, there's Kachia in Kaduna State, there is also Nimbauchi, there's Urubo, and many of the very, very famous. Millions of dollars were spent on this. It is a pity that if we did implement that program and monitor it and make sure that our staff are really trained to continue after, we will not be in this situation today, if we were. Next one. Here are some of the structures in the grazing reserve. You see grazing reserve in Katsina, they had 6. I only named one for Runka. That is the size of the grazing reserve and the status, whether it is gazetted or not gazetted, and facilities which remain there. In Kebbi, there are 7. In Sokoto, in Adamawa, in Bauchi, next one. You see Borno, all to where Oyo, Ogun. All these are the grazing reserve. The number in Niger is 20. I only choose one as an example to give you the size and the stage of development. In other words, I've got one for Enugu and a lot of the whole country. The point is, why did we abandon this? Many crop farmers, some of our officials in the Ministry of Agriculture sell some of these areas to the crop farmers, leading to conflict. Some of the areas have been abandoned because of the problem by the Fulani themselves. So the failure is very due to us, and worst of all is not looking forward to see what we could really do to preserve and build on whatever we have built before. Next one. Okay, then the government tried another scheme. What they did is, in modern production system, in all over the world, the place, the ecological area with maximum production advantage is choosing to produce the raw material, process it, and sell it to where they need it. That's what the government of Northern Nigeria did. They know that Sokoto, Katsina, there's Kano, Maiduguri, Bauchi, they're all cattle production areas. What the southern government did, they established abattoirs, big abattoirs in those places. Even the bone mills, blood mill, all these machineries were all there in the 60s and 70s. So that animals can be slaughtered in the north, rather than tracking or burning them, dress them up, take them by air, or take them by refrigerator wagon to take to the consumers in the south. But that one also failed. The last one that government did was Mokwa Ranch. If you go to Mokwa, you see a ranch supported by the Germans. They give us a lot of money. Many of the experts were there with us for a long time. There is abattoir in Mokwa right now, and animals are slaughtered, dressed, and cooked. But initially, they were taking them on life basis to ship them to the south. So these are the things that government really did with try and encourage individuals to participate in this program. It is a tripartite program. The state government, the federal government, and the practitioners. In Africa, things are different. The Maasais are the producers of livestock in Kenya. The Fulas are the producers of livestock in Sierra Leone. Here in Nigeria, it is either the Shua Arabs or the Fulanis. Those are but they are not meant to be that. It's not meant to be that. It is a commercial enterprise, and anybody can go into it. You and me can go into it. I can tell you that today, if we practice some of the technologies we have developed in Zaria, you will be able to earn at least 400,000 naira every 3 months. We don't need to get any imported anything. So why are you afraid of going to HSR? Why do you leave things to Fulani? All of us can participate. There's no doubt about it. Anyhow, that's where we are so far. Next one. National Development Plan. This part of the government effort, the past government's effort. The third National Development Plan, they allocated 344.05 million naira to agriculture. A lot of that money went to livestock development. So the governments in the past did not keep quiet. You see the percentage of national budget, 1%. It's a lot. We are crying for education, but you look at it in livestock. So the government in the past, they really did everything to avert this situation we are now meeting our doorstep. Cattle development, the first priority. Why? Because it plays a great economic role. It also satisfies the Fulani culture. Before you marry, you pass so many animals to the in-law and all sorts of things. So cultural role, economic role, and meeting of nutrition is very important. So the cattle receive a higher priority than the monogastrics. The monogastrics are the chicken and the pig and what have you got. The money was devoted to commercial ranches, mixed farming groups, and animal health in particular. Those are the things that we wanted the money for in the third National Development Plan. Next one is the fourth National Development Plan, 1981 to 2. See, the years are over each other. But there again, 671 million was allocated. In those days, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money devoted to livestock. If what it was meant for was really done, because of the failure of the third National Development Plan that we couldn't achieve much. The money here, we are financially favorable, but we haven't got enough staff to continue with it. And therefore, it leads to a failure. Now, other efforts were also included. There was a special fund for grazing reserve development in 1984 to 1991. Those has again improved productivity. A lot of it was to care for the industry, the dairy industry, as well as for beef production. So this is it. Next one. Time. Next one. Why did all these government fail? Why did government efforts fail? I think I've told you some of them before. So because of time, let's go ahead with something else. Let's go. Next one. Now allocation of, that's number one. Revert back. Okay. No, this is not the one. That's not the one. Get back again. So some of the failures were there. Non-allocation of land, no ownership of land. If you don't have a land, you don't produce, you don't encourage to do anything about it. If it is your house, you know how to decorate, you know how to take care of it. If it's somebody else's house, you don't care about it. With settlement goes the pride of ownership and also the development initial. What belongs to all belongs to nobody. And that's why we find ourselves in this situation. Next one. It is regrettable that Nigeria, with a high population of Romanians, almost in every state of the Federation, we find ourselves where we find ourselves today. Bloody clashes become order of the day, especially in the Middle Belt. The Transformers cattle era, we know, in the 60s are different. They are now carrying AK-47. A country that can easily be exporter of livestock and livestock products today is an importer. You remember some years ago when we were getting meat from Brazil? What for? They don't have Fulanis. People produce all the meat they need, and yet we are importing from. That also kills our industry. Instead of promoting individuals to go into the trade, we kill the interests of ourselves. There must be a way out, and government must be more serious in alleviating this crisis by peace and development for peace and development to ensure. Some of the ways out, which are they? These are where the suggestions are. We are in 21st century. Any right-thinking person must accept that there must be a change in our livestock industry. There's no way we can continue this way and say that we are going to be food security conscious. The traditional husbandry system has got to find a way for different things as well. Today, in research, We are producing animals that can produce milk. We are producing animals that can produce meat. We are producing animals that can get more eggs. There's nothing we have not done research. But are they implemented? No. Up to today, nothing is implemented. It is a serious concept that our breeds of livestock cannot do it. No, they can do it. We don't have to import. Many big farmers in this country have imported breeds of cattle. I'm not going to mention the name of generals and who do have, but all of them are failure. Why? Because they neglect our own resources. We have done research over the last 60 years here in Zaria, and we know that some of those animals, given the right type of nutrition and care and management, they give 1 kilogram per day of meat. You see, instead of animal walking for 20 miles a day, looking for grass and coming back again, all the energy can be transferred to make meat. It's transmitted into energy for walking, or to transmit it into milk production. It's also, not only that, for each kilogram of milk that you produce, you need extra 2.5 kilograms of food. So if you're producing 8 kilograms of milk per day, you need to do that. You see, you neglect, like the local chicken. Look at the local chicken. The chicken is going around with the babies all over the place. And when you get the European one, you put them, you keep them with special feed and special distance. They produce more because you are looking after them more. So it is negligence on system and co that leads us in the way we are lending. My suggestion, I think, like we said, the time is getting to the end. The last input by the federal government is what we want to really deliberate on here, and that is involvement of the PTF, not the Petroleum Trust Fund, where our present head of state was the chairman. We were the advisors on this program, and we developed it in such a way that farmers were made to form cooperatives. These cooperatives, they depend on themselves. They raise money to do their cupcakes and water resources. They raise money, we teach them how to make further crops. That is, they grow their maize, and then we give them special seed for legumes to put after second hoeing, that they can produce more leguminous crop at the same time, so that the animals will be okay in the dry season. This is further crop. We developed that one in Kachia, and up to today, some farmers are still practicing it. There are many ways in which we have tried to see that the survival of the livestock industry is no problem whatsoever. So this scheme by the PTF, the Petroleum Trust Fund, worked very well in Adamawa. It worked very well in Katsina. We have seen the farmers developing that with 300,000 naira, the resuscitate their own dam near Admiral Yaku's farm. I know because we have visited there, me and Ango of Lai, we went there to see what they are doing. We give them pastures, they plant all the pastures. They felt proud of what they have. And they are doing more to make sure that they extend it to all the other members of the farming group. We introduce them to the feed millers to get agro byproducts, granite cake, the cotton seed cake, pen grain. We introduce them to all of them. They were recognized in society by the local government, by the state government, and the federal government. So they were on the move when suddenly the regime came to a stop and the whole thing collapsed. I think that the present thinking, I don't know about the nation transition form or do whatever the case may be, but this scheme, I think we shouldn't let it go. We should revive it. Call those who know about it, and let us really deliberate and see how it can succeed. We have to start from somewhere. We cannot be going, guessing, and doing this livestock colony, this colony. This one will not work. Let us start and call a spade, and really embark and make sure that we succeed in this program. Thank you very much.
We thank Professor Saka Nuru for that beautiful insight he has given to us, and I believe we have learned a lot. And I want to think, based on the fact that he's been in this industry for quite some time, he has a number of Fulani titles. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, for his thought-provoking paper and the insights he has given to us. May we once again, ladies and gentlemen, put our hands together for Professor Saka Nuru. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, time is always our problem, but we still have 2 or 3 more to go before we go into the Q&A. And at this time, Associate Professor Chudi Nzuruike, a sociologist who was trained in the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, also schooled at the University of Lagos, where he obtained a master's degree in mass communication, and has been a scholar of international repute, who has won a number of grants for research. He is also one of the discussants, and he will be joining us via Zoom online. I want to now call on Professor Chudi, whom I believe is connected, and as you watch, he will be talking to us online. Prof, the field is open.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Go ahead, loud and clear.
Thank you so much, MC. Wonderful job. Thank you. Let me begin by saluting His Excellency Governor El Rufai, who I met years ago in New York, shortly before the onset of this Fourth Republic, when he had come with General Obasanjo, who was just then out of prison, and we were at the Nigerian Diplomatic House in Worcester. Let me also salute the Honorable Minister, who has started something with this town hall series, and I hope he continues. And let me say, all protocols observed. My task is fairly simple. The distinguished keynote speaker or lead presenter, Professor Jibrin, is well known to all of us as a columnist, as a political scientist, and as a nationalist, as well as somebody with a humanitarian bent and capability in the sort of analysis many of us understand and cherish, in the sense that Nigerian affairs have now been reduced almost to a game of ethnic and ethno-regional strategies, when in fact the world is going to the moon and going past the moon and going to Mars. Others are doing other things. But let me stick to the paper and discuss it briefly. I'm told the time is a problem, but we'll do the best we can. I find the lead presenter's paper very fascinating as a political sociologist. It reminds me of the sort of work that my old professor of politics, Samuel Huntington, the author of that famous and infamous book, Clash of Civilizations, will normally give, which is to look at the conceptual dilemma new nations face and the practical urgencies that they require. He begins by quoting Professor Ajayi, my old Vice Chancellor, at University of Lagos, who clearly ranks as one of the greatest historians Nigeria ever produced, along with DK, Afibu, Bala Usman, and a whole range of other people who have done what they can to make sure Nigeria's story is kept straight. And I agree with him. Other says, and here put it, there is no easy way to pull this country apart. The problems arising from such an exercise will be far bigger, so on. But that doesn't mean that a country can be held together without the people's consent. So that this exercise by the other one, and that's reflected in this late paper, is dedicated to the notion that consensus is possible and the coming of shared values is possible. He says clearly that the potential of Nigeria growing into a great advanced country remains real, and I agree with him. As a Pan-Africanist myself, nothing could have made us happier than to see a stable Nigeria leading Africa. But what we see, according to him, is a dramatic breakdown in security, provisioning, and a disillusionment with the capacity of the state as a protector, as it were. As sectarian conflicts, some of them ethnic, many of them religious, already occupy the space, both online and offline. We're in an era of hate speech and the collapse of elite consensus. It becomes very important that everyone who can remember the other two crises that Professor Jibril alludes to, the crisis of nationhood, the First Republic, for instance, and the long military rule, so that what we have right now should be put in the context of a third crisis. But it could also be a third fatal crisis. And with these preambles, in other words, setting the stage, he goes on to what I may call the part two of his work, which is to look at what needs to be done, but from an analytical and practical policy perspective. He says there are 10 of them, of which the first is to stop the drift. I'll just select a few because he himself went through them very carefully. To stop the drift towards anarchy. This is a hard break. For those of us, some who call ourselves part of the Murtala Mohammed generation, who were all student activists. I was part of the Ali Must Go student movements in those days. I was president at the University of Nigeria, in the late 70s, 77, 78, thereabouts. And we rose up, even though some of us had scholarships and were not affected by the fees increase. But we knew that at least 30% of our colleagues were going to drop out and not come back if those fees persisted. If we didn't do anything, it was all gone. And under the leadership of quite a number of actors actually from different parts of the country, we networked. I used to come to Samaru campus. Since there's so many ABU people here, we were the generation that would drive all the way from Suka, from there to Jos, from Jos to all the way to Yobe, all the way to Beduguri, pick up our friend Bukam Baya from there, and then move all the way to ABU Zaria, passing camp. That was how we moved in those days. And from there we go on to Ife, Lagos, and so on. And then end up in Benin or Port Harcourt. There was a youthful bulge that was patriotic and clearly nationalistic in the late 70s. The collapse of all this is something that our speaker looks at. And the most important is that we're drifting to anarchy. And I will be one of those who remain impressed with Professor Nuru's presentation, his presentation on what has happened to the livestock industry and how we've come from carrying defensive materials necessary for the war to carrying AK-47 and the need for Nigeria to look closely at some of these ECOWAS principles to see if they're not creating more problems. And the sad story of Zamfara, Imo, and so on are things that remind us of the need for those who actually want this country to work, to stand up and be counted fast. In the final paper, I'm sure you can read all this for yourselves, as it were. But I agree with his submissions there. Then he moves on to my item number 2, his second solution, that we must end state-centric security provisioning. I listened to the speech by His Excellency Governor El-Rufai, who also alluded to this. The security forces essentially over-centralized, and especially the police. The police ought to be your friend. The police is the first, the first part of the security network that we must always run or encounter every single day. And generally, people are not so bad. People prefer if the rules are clear. And as our author says, They prefer obeying rules. They will prefer obeying laws if those laws are clear. And let's listen to point number 3, edification of the rule of law. The rule of law is probably one of the most important ingredients of modern statehood and modern civilization. Whether we're talking about the laws of Hammurabi or those of President Yaradua, who spoke of the rule of law. And very interesting that Professor Jibrin outlines the 7 points that constitute the rule of law. And in a summary version, he speaks of the legitimacy of authority that is empowered to make them in the first place. If the authority is not legitimate, not to work. The laws must be publicly declared and known to everyone. The laws must apply to everybody without let. Members of society are citizens and should be protected by the law and treated as such. Those applying the laws must not allow the discretion. The laws must be known to everyone. And finally, the laws cannot be enacted proactively. No, the laws must apply proactively and not retroactively. Excuse me. So, on this again, we agree. Then moves on to point number 4, which says, let it be known, all Nigerians are marginalized. And that's where the argument can get a little thicker. Professor Jibrin, I understand exactly what he means. Everyone has a complaint, everyone has a narrative of marginalization, and very clearly, you can't say your own marginalization is worse than that of any other person. But there's no question that whether on the question of political appointments, which is a very important part of legitimacy, and the observance of federal character principles, or whether in the area of minority repression, there are clearly those who are much more marginalized. It's a psychological thing in a way. It may or may not be as real as people they want to say, but there's no question that we have a very hard choice to make, a very easy choice rather. Either we're running an inclusive federation or we're running something else. So the fears of domination in a country that is a colonial creation where people are dragged into union without being consulted. The only way to build a stable union that's legitimate and long-lasting and sustainable is through inclusiveness. And I know that some governors like Eurofire, but also many others, have made clear their preference for reaching out to other areas in recruiting talent for their state, and that is a very good thing. The state has to be seen as a neutral arbiter. Negotiation and conflict resolution mechanisms should not be allowed to break down, and the ethno-regional political actors who have been taking marginalist positions and treating compromise with disdain must be restrained. I'm reading from Professor Jibrin's brilliant piece. Number 5, our elite consensus. Give us to federalism. I've just mentioned that, so I'll just move on. There's no question that elite consensus is very important. There's also no question that starting from 1951 at least, at the Madrasan Constitutional Conference, Nigerians prefer federalism. And the question then is, what is federalism and what is true federalism? So we still have a long way to go in making sure that we think of everybody at the same time, and we're thinking of how to move Nigeria forward. It cannot be sectional. Then item number 6, negotiates an approach and a time frame for resolving the farmer crisis. I think that without further ado, the presentation by Professor Nuhu is rich enough and right on target, in the sense that a lot of reform could be done in the livestock industry, but there's also no question that a national conference is in order, or even a national retreat. We have to talk to ourselves and see how some of the more urgent problems can be resolved in time. He also speaks at point number 7, recovering our ungoverned spaces. But see, some of this he didn't mention during presentation because his time was highly constrained. But the ungoverned spaces, things we have come into the national lexicon, national narrative, where criminals can hide and do havoc to citizens. Very clearly, we can't allow some spaces to be empty or controlled by people we don't know. And I think that the those who prosecute you being called the ruling class. My problem with the ruling class metaphor is that, well, people, the key of democracy is that it's not a lifelong royal appointment or election. People come and go. So that ruling class is enlarging, as it were, but they need to take themselves very seriously once they're in that particular office. Item number 8, as a solution, and I say this because I know the minister was also, Minister Lai Mohammed, was saying that there's enough talk, let's go to solution. So Honorable Minister, here is item number 8, that we, the elders, need to teach our children that we worship the same God. And I know the speaker also spent some time on this, and here in the main paper, it provides examples from the Quran, from the Bible, from various sections, from the Hadith, from the Psalms, of these two great religions, saying more or less the same thing. Let me just add a word here that if we want, if this is something that Nigerians really yearn for as a way out, we can think of ourselves, just like other countries think of themselves as special people in a way, collectively. Nobody is dead. We can build an African new civilization based on religious equity and religious agreement on principle. We need to develop African civilization and development. We have to fully understand. Well, before the traditionalists we've forgotten, is a tripartite type of situation. But I know this is a debate. It says that there are those who don't look or let's practice the truth. So, again, this is a subject for at some point where we can look at how our continent can reform. Item number 9, he speaks of the universal approach to education. Says that no Nigerian child left uneducated, and that was the basis and assumption of the youth. I remember that in 1970, as it were, and I remember the role of Ahmed Joda, whom he quotes here, that example of General Gowan locking them up and asking for a one-item solution if they could. That was brilliant, and they came up with something useful, the national pledge. But how do you make people obey, act upon, and believe in the national pledge if there is no justice? Because social justice, defined in many ways, is simply the bedrock of legitimacy, as it were. And finally, number 10, Nigeria's state crisis and imperative of collective action. Here he gets very serious and says Nigerian state is the crisis of Nigerian state is serious, and this day we appear to be going deeper into the abyss. And it's very important for those who are in authority to understand that there's disillusionment in the land. There's hunger in the land. There's also disillusionment. So we do have a problem, as it were. He asks an 11th one, I said, don't forget what we've told our children. Go forth and intermarry. And that's something that he mentions. If you ask him where is the authority from this, he says Article 15, Section 3C in the Constitution, 1999 Constitution. In other words, that is the only way, in more ways than one, that you build a nation that is sociologically cohesive, psychologically balanced, and politically legitimate in the sense of having its edicts delivered upon by he didn't have a chance to read his conclusion. It's very brief, and I think that's why he brings it all together. And let me just say this. Rebuilding the state for governance, in which there is effective transparency and accountable use of public resources to provide public goods to citizens, is what Nigeria deserves. If those who exercise state power cannot use or improve the lives and livelihoods of citizens, then they will need to be replaced. Our state must also recover the capacity to say that the monopoly of the use of legitimate violence in society belongs to the state. The armed forces must be rebuilt as the state recovers our traditions and traditional and religious institutions as well as civil society. We must have excuse me, this is blood here. They must have a huge role in playing their part in the war against ongoing insurgents. This is the kernel of his presentation, and I find it remarkable because the question of Nigeria is huge and the literature is vast. And I'll tell you very clearly, my own conclusion is that Nigeria is in a way a child of destiny. It's a country born of a question mark. But what I find remarkable in looking at Max Sillon's new book, What Britain Did to Nigeria, where he looked at what the people we call the founders of Nigeria at the colonial stage, the officials drawn from the colonial of Lagos, the Niger Trading Company, the Protectorate of Northern Nigeria, and the Protectorate of Southern Nigeria, over 16 years, in fact, longer than that, is that most of them have no respect for Nigerians. They thought Nigerians were savages, and they said so in their writings and so on. And there was no nation building. All they were doing was to keep out the French and, as much as possible, enhance the profit line of the trading companies. So it's very important that we're on our own. Nobody should think that they did them any favors, as it were, or that they were such wonderful people. So, like all colonial imperial experiences, our lives were turned into what it has become as a result of foreign adventurers. But as Americans would say, sometimes if you're given lemon, you can make a lemonade. Lemon by itself is bitter. Lemonade.
Can you round up? Can you round up, Prof? Round up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. These are my last words. Okay. What I would add is that the presenter needed to speak of the ideological nature of the crisis, in the sense that the political party, he gives the political parties a pass. He didn't really mention them as much. APC and PDP and all the other parties have a huge plan for what is going on. They need to come out and clearly show a way out. Reading the manifestos, you see a lot of brilliance, it's all wonderful, representation, and keeping it together, very difficult. We must also understand that, whether we like it or not, globalization is marching on. We're in the age of techno-cultural realities, and the world that we know today will change in the next 15 years. The question is, where will Nigeria be? So the states must look at the strengths it already has, and one strength is in Chapter 2 of the Federal Constitution, which can be made justiciable. It's our fundamental rights. I think that very clearly, along with Section 1415 on federal character. If we take those two segments of the Constitution serious, we're going somewhere. And finally, a national conference where everyone and everything can be on the table is called for. He also mentioned that we already have the resources from the Obasanjo Constitutional Conference, the Jonathan Effort, the National Assembly amendments, and we have delegates from all the secessionist movement and so on, could be accommodated. Let's talk to ourselves, as it were. So, ladies and gentlemen, with these few remarks, I want to say clearly that we're on the cusp of possibly creating another Nigeria that can go forward and be sustained, but only based on justice, accommodation, and inclusiveness. We already have three advantages in what we're doing, so let's just not throw the baby out with the bathwater. True federalism is what we'll agree on. Electoral term limits, no more than 2 terms, very important. And the idea of rotational presidency and restructuring. All these things are on the table, and Nigerians have to agree. So I want to congratulate you, Professor Jibrin. I want to thank you for your efforts in all this. And I want to say very clearly that the Honorable Minister, as a final statement, needs to think deep about continuing this series and sometimes even organizing national retreats, as it were, where everybody would, from one end to the other, speak about the kind of Nigeria they want. And I'll say this because when I was a member of the Federal House of Reps, under the Tambuwal speakership, Tambuwal Yedewan speakership, we had a situation where all members were required to go to their constituencies and ask them the same set of questions at the same time from one end of the country to the other. And all members carried that out. And the turnout was incredible from village to city, and people said they wanted one Nigeria. People said they wanted a better situation, and so on. And those records are there. So this sort of town hall meetings can be a future of modern Nigeria, so people can complain early, and especially, hopefully, the state can take action. So I thank you very much. MC, over to you.
The representative of the governor of Zamfara State, Dosara, was a BBC correspondent and had covered the villa for quite some time before he was called back to his state to serve. Thank you for your intervention. I have seen a hand somewhere out there. Yes, from my left-hand side. Please extend the microphone to him. Take note, this is the fifth one. Unless I'm directed otherwise, I will revert to the high table for them to answer. You have raised or to clarify. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think my own is an observation. My name is Adamu Lawal Toro. I represent NTA, National Headquarters. The biggest challenge now we see is the inability of the states to manage their own resources. What resources? For instance, there are 400 grazing reserves that cover about 5 billion hectares. Over the years, there were efforts to develop them, and they were indeed developed, but the states could not manage them. And we realized that they initiate policies that go counter to this grazing reserve that could have given succor to some of these roaming pastoralists. One, they are not seeded. And every time we make efforts to make the states understand that there is need for them to do the right thing, it looks like nobody wants to listen. And when there are crises, we complain, nobody listens. Even the agricultural policies, when the government implemented the Fadama policy, it knew exactly that it was going to create crisis, because during the dry season, these are the areas where the pastoralists go and have succor for their cattle. Three, with all the disasters that come, whether rain pest, whether drought, the climate change, and they lose thousands of cattle. When they lose this number of cattle, so far, in the last 10-15 years, pastoralists have lost over 3 million cattle. Nobody bothers to give them any palliative, not even a thank you, not even a sorry. And even when there is this COVID-19, who gives them palliatives? Are they the Nigerians? So you leave them in a perpetual cycle of despondency. And this is the right time, if we are to do something. Let us look at what it takes is very little for you. Just within the grazing reserves, give them some lots, give them some new breed of cattle and new techniques, and I think they can improve themselves. They are not asking for the billions that you are giving to the farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayati Allah. May I now revert to the high table or to the discussants and presenters, and I would call on the lead presenter. If you want to clarify, you want to make a comment, the floor is open. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Since the time is far gone, I just want to make two very quick points. The first point is that in my 10 points, I actually jumped to the one on the farmer harder crisis. It is their fault when you are talking to me about. But anyway, the point I made there is one, that to move forward, sometimes government has to admit it has made a terrible mistake. I made the argument that the turning point of loss of confidence in this country was when social media was saying there is a Fulani plot to colonize people's land. And the federal government followed up with introducing the cattle colony and then went to Ruga. It confirmed people's worst fears. And I think the government has to come back and create assurance on that. My second point is to announce I was brought up in the NEPU PRP tradition, and in Ahmadu Bello University at that time, we did a huge celebration of the end to the tax regime, and we were so much against traditional rulers. Now in old age, I can see clearly marginalizing traditional rulers was the way in which we undermined governance in this country. They are the ones who are there, and even if they have no formal role today, they know what is going on in their domain, and if they are given an opportunity, they could make a huge difference in governance. We should think seriously about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Saka. Do you have any comment? Do you have anything?
Thank you very much indeed. First is the fact about religion. This religion, to Nigerians, we are very religious outside. But are we really religious inside? Do we really believe in God? Do we really do what we are supposed to do? Learn from each other? Respect all the norms in society? No, all of them, Christian and Muslims, they are all the same. Politicians use us to get what they want to get. That's the fact. If they want to do this and that, they will say they are Christian, and so we want support with Christians. If it is Muslim, we want support with the Muslims. That's what is happening. So God is a lip service. If not, how can Boko Haram and kidnappers be slaughtering other Muslims in their village in the night and say, Allahu Akbar? It's Allahu Akbar means God is great, and you are slaughtering your fellow Muslim. No, I think we have to have a way of change. Our lives is completely so. This country is becoming something else. That's number one. Intermarriage. Yeah? It has been happening since before the 1970 war, and it's continuing on long basis. I married a British before because I was in Britain for 7 years. I've still got my wife. She's still in Britain, and we've got our children here. Some of them are abroad. But I've also got a Fulani woman who has also got 3 children. So I'm a Yoruba and I married a Fulani. General Mohammed, former chief of staff, name them in the military, name them anywhere, they are all married to foreigners, to people who are not on their own tribe. Either they are married to Igbos or married to Yoruba or married to all of us. Even Angabla is married to a Yoruba woman. So you see, the system of uniting ourselves is already there in practice. And without anybody forcing anybody to intermarriage. But the fact remains that politicians still use it to get what they want, just like they use religion. You know, I'm a Yoruba, so you got to vote for Yorubas. I'm a so and so. This is the problem with this country. I don't know. Anyhow, that you see it. Now, when you speak of cattle colony, we speak of ranches. We talk about, today I've given you the systems of production. If you say ranch in Australia, and I've been there many times, it means half of Kwara State is one ranch. Half of the state is one ranch. You only see animals once a year. And when you see them, you hire a helicopter to drive those animals from half of Kwara to one location. You take the ones which are mature to go to market, and you vaccinate the others, and you make sure that the grass is growing, make sure that the water is pumping, all the boreholes are working, you leave it till next year. That is a ranch. You talk about ranch here. What do you think you understand what ranch is?
Thank you.
That's what ranch is. Now, the point is this. all these cattle colonies, they're all Nigerian made, and they don't mean a thing. Let us act on what we know. And this is why I still emphasize on the PTF program. If you read the thing too well, I didn't go through detail, but it is the right direction. And it is going to help us to sedentarize these people. It is going to help us to have self-ownership pride in what they have, and also increase rural and urban income to all of us. So don't let us defeat. Don't let us think about colony and all sort of, no, forget about them. You read the article more in my paper, and if you like, you consult us later. We will tell you what to do about it. It is really, we're going to start from somewhere.
Okay.
And possibly I'm hoping that this particular town hall meeting is a revolution for livestock development and for the restoration of peace for this country.
Thank you, thank you. None? Professor Chudi, I saw you. Do you have any intervention or any comment? Chudi? No? I still saw Awashika. No? Okay. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Oh. Awashika is on?
No, I was just saying that we didn't hear the questions because the speakers were muted at the point in time when we tried to send messages in. You guys didn't know that.
Okay, sorry for that. We've gone far. We're just asking if you have any one thing within 2 minutes just to add, and that will be it. Are we good to go? All right, thank you very much, Washika. Thank you very much, Chudi. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The Senate leader has been here. He's been sitting quietly listening, and you know they are the ones that would always allocate the funds. And because we won't want allocation to dry up, so that we're able to do a lot to tackle the security matters. With your permission, may I invite him to just say hello, even if it means just saying hi to everybody. The Senate leader, sir.
Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, represented by his deputy, the Honorable Minister of Defense, Police, and other ministers, the Minister of Information, service chiefs and their representatives. I will want, on behalf of the National Assembly, to thank the Honorable Minister, the organizers of this event, for inviting us to come and share the wisdom and knowledge that have been expressed in this particular interaction. I want to assure you that all the issues that have been discussed are very, very taken and noted. And I also want to assure the lead speaker and also some of the issues that have been raised by the governor in his welcome address. These are some of the issues that will be taken during the review exercise that is going on in the National Assembly. Some of the issues having to do with the character of the state, the nature of the security forces, the disposition and their equipment are also things that are being considered by the National Assembly. Indeed, before the President departed for his annual leave a few days ago, we discussed that a supplementary budget is going to come before the National Assembly, and the content of the security of that budget is going to be on the health, but much, much more. Most of it is going to be related to security-related equipment and the ways in which we want to make sure that our armed forces and the police are well taken care of and equipped in such a way that they can face the challenges of insecurity all over the country. I want to assure all of you that we are on the front line because all of us are products of constituencies which elected members of the National Assembly to represent them in the Parliament of the nation. We will do our best to uphold the honor that has been done to us by our constituents. And most of this honor has to do with securing their lives and properties. Indeed, the National Assembly, in the 8th Assembly and in the 9th Assembly, security has been on the front burner. We organized several interactions with the security agencies. In 2017, I led the one which we did in 2019, where we invited all the security-related institutions and interacted with them on the basis of which we produced a report which was passed on to the executive arm of government for implementation. So I want to assure you that this National Assembly has always taken the security of lives of Nigerians and their properties as one of the most important functions that it has, and it's always treated them on the front burner. Once again, I want to thank you all for coming to this interaction, and I also want to thank the Honourable Minister for inviting us to participate in this event. Thank you, and God bless you all.
We thank the National Assembly, particularly the Senate, for these very kind words and assurance that they are there for us. Ladies and gentlemen, let us put our hands once more for the Senate leader for that beautiful representation. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I've always said time is not our friend. We're almost getting there. At this stage, please permit me to invite the spokesman, the golden voice of the administration in the person of Alhaji Lai Mohammed, to please come forward and give his closing remarks before we take the vote of thanks. Honorable Minister of Information, sir.
Your Excellency, the Governor of Kaduna State, ably represented by the Deputy Governor, representatives of our governors here, the Senate Leader, representatives of the Senate President, my very, very honorable colleagues, ministers who are here, our royal fathers who have been very patient, Bishop Farrell, I have to mention in particular, and I think you know why. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to adopt the already very expertly established list of protocol. But even then, I must please recognize the representatives of the service chiefs, the Nigerian police, immigration, and all the security forces here. Your Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that today's town hall meeting on national security has been very enlightening, very insightful, and very, very rewarding. I think it's also been a platform for confession and repentance, especially on the part of Professor Ibrahim. I remember that when the Jangali tax was abolished, he was at the forefront of those who celebrated it. But see, when we are young, like they say, what an old man sees when he's sitting down, a young man will not sit on the top of a tree. And that's why we have come down today to appreciate traditional rulers. And interestingly enough, because I also serve on the Committee on Traditional Rulers, I think on more than one occasion, traditional rulers expressed the view that when you tax people, then you make them more responsible, and then you become more accountable. And that really the abolition of the Tangali tax did more to endanger our internal security than probably solved. And let me thank the lead presenter for a very powerful, insightful, and deep paper. He didn't just enumerate challenges, he proffered solutions. Those solutions will come in handy when we collate the views from this town hall meeting. I just want to apologize to Professor Jibril for not giving him enough time to present this rich paper, which we have already circulated widely. But interestingly enough, I was not the one that did not give him enough time. On the contrary, it was the presenter, because actually the first time I came around to the young lady here, I said, please give Professor Ibrahim 10 more minutes extra. But unfortunately, when you are giving the paper, you thought you were asking, we are doing 10 more minutes. When I saw that, I came back again and I said, I mean 15 more minutes. So thank you, Professor, because I took time to read your paper, and it's a treasure. I can say this. It's a real treasure. The discussants were no less insightful in dissecting the lead paper. Professor Nuri's paper needs a whole session of town hall meeting because of its richness and depth. For many of us, we will not believe that Professor Nuri is 84 years old. And you can imagine how alert he is and how agile he is. Professor Nuri gave us an insight into the farmers-elders clashes that many of us were hearing for the first time today. Professor Wazirike painstakingly dissected the paper by Professor Jibril. He ended up on a positive note that we are at the cusp of creating a new Nigeria that can march forward and be sustained on the basis of justice and equity. I want to thank Professor Wazirike for his kind words on the town hall meeting and his advice regarding the need for a national retreat to deepen our discourse. Professor Edafona took the discourse to another level, ruling out a number of immediate, short, and long-term solutions to the challenges we face. Her comment on the need to engage the civil society is well noted. Finally, Mrs. Ibuku Awushika's contribution wrapped things up beautifully and with great passion. A statement that we are many decades too late to pull the country apart is very, very important. And I think it should be one of the major takeaways from this town meeting. And of course, she asked a rhetorical question. What is our national consensus. She also said, now is the time to act to save our country. Your Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a day of great discourse, and I believe the outcome of this town hall meeting will go a long way in forging the much needed elite consensus to tackle our challenges. And we will need the advice of Bishop Josiah Ferron. And we will heed the advice of Bishop Discussant that we share the recommendations from this town hall meeting with the states. I thank you, sir, for attending this town hall meeting and for the words of wisdom. As a matter of fact, when we were conceiving this town hall meeting, Bishop Ferron was supposed to be one of our lead speakers, actually, because we had to change the concept. When the concept was changed to, lead speaker and discussant, we felt that Bishop Ferron, it would be too much to trouble Bishop Ferron, who is in England, to come home. And that is why we did not include him on the list of discussants. But I'm actually very impressed that he found out and took the time to come. Thank you very much. On this note, I once again thank all of you for your presence and your contribution. But of course, I'm going to be very partial. I would thank my colleagues especially, because I know the sacrifice they've all gone through to make it to Kaduna today. Honourable Ministers, I thank you very much. And another reason why I'm thanking you, you realize that we are the endangered species. Every problem here has been heaped on us, politicians. May God forgive us. Thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture giving his final remarks on this town hall meeting. We are almost there. May we now invite the Permanent Secretary Cabinet Office, Kaduna State, in the person of Nuhu Buzum, to please come and give the vote of thanks on behalf of the state government. Nuhu Buzum, are you close? Thank you.
Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Kaduna State, Dr. Hadiza Sabo Balarabi, the Malama who is assisting the Malam in steering the affairs of Kaduna State, the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture. With your kind permission, I wish to proceed on the protocols already adequately established. I actually thought the Honorable Minister had already offered the vote of thanks. But since I've been invited to represent my teacher and boss, Madam Balarabe Abbas, I'll just take 30 minutes. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Our sincere appreciation, first and foremost, goes to God, our Creator and Sustainer, who gives life and also grants opportunities for the gift of life today and the opportunity and privilege to be alive today and to attend and be present at this town hall meeting. And secondly, I join His Excellency the Governor, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, in thanking the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture for choosing Kaduna State, the grandfather and grandmother, if you like, of the northern states of Nigeria to host the event. The lead presenter and the distinguished discussants, we thank you for sharing your insightful, provoking, courageous, and also very passionate thoughts with us this morning and part of the afternoon. Your contributions, no doubt, albeit in some instances quite challenging, have also been quite enriching, rewarding, and also reassuring. It is our prayer that collectively your contributions and thoughts shall substantially contribute towards addressing and reversing the current negative occurrences within our country and threatening our corporate and collective existence as a nation. Distinguished government functionaries and members of the public who participated physically and also virtually, we thank you for the priority accorded this meeting by choosing out of your numerous other engagements to be part of this program. Members of the press, we thank you for the adequate coverage. We hope that the outcome, as has been canvassed by so many others, will receive the deserved dissemination. Our security agencies, paramilitary formations, we also appreciate your untiring efforts and sustained sacrifices over the years in ensuring Nigeria remains a united country. Our revered traditional rulers, we also thank you for your untiring efforts in ensuring peace and peaceful coexistence in your respective domains, even though sometimes at the risk of being misunderstood. The organizing committee, staff of the Federal Ministry of Information, the convener, National Orientation Agency, the mobilizer, and of course, other people who contributed, we salute you for a job well done. Our hope is that we all live here today as a people whose weight of despair and hopelessness has been greatly lessened. We're encouraged to go on with the message of patriotism and hope. For the management of CASU and staff and students, we say thank you for making available the hall and the venue. The officers and men of the Nigerian Police Force, Security and Civil Defense Corps, Federal Road Safety Commission, we also thank you for providing security and orderliness within and without the premises. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for everyone who contributed in one way or the other, on behalf of the state government, we say thank you for giving us the privilege to host you. Sir John, God bless.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary, Cabinet Office. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of this town hall meeting, but on behalf of my colleague, Jacqueline, from Invicta FM Radio, I want to say a very big thank you for co-anchoring this program with me. My name is Peter Dama. I'm a retired federal director from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, saying a very big thank you to all of you for your patience and for listening. We apologize in case we committed any error in the names and in our presentation. So can we all now rise, ladies and gentlemen, for the national anthem.
time has been far spent, and speakers have deliberated extensively on the imperatives of mutual understanding, national cohesion, and the need for all critical stakeholders who have gathered here to take the message back home. And the message is for them to operationalize all the suggestions made, the need for inclusiveness in governance, and the need for people to respect the rule of law. These were some of the issues raised by lead presenter and also discussants, as well as those who have asked questions during this town hall meeting held in Kaduna. The expectation is for Nigeria to have a lasting peace, and that can only be achieved by promoting mutual understanding among various ethnic groups, various faithfuls, and that the speakers and all stakeholders who have gathered here agreed that if it's well implemented, Nigeria will be a better place for all. Thank you for being with us from Kaduna Network Center. All the crew members, we say thank you for being with the largest TV network in Africa, the NTA. What you say?